At every funeral, there is always one person who isn't crying, one person who is watching. And according to investigators, that person is exactly who they're looking for. Let me ask you something. Think about the last funeral you attended. There were flowers, there were tears, people hugging each other, whispering, dabbing their eyes with tissues. Now close your eyes and think. Was there anyone there who seemed off? Someone who didn't cry? Someone who stood a little too still? Someone whose eyes weren't looking at the coffin, but at the people around it? Most of us notice these things and then forget them. But investigators? Detectives? Criminal profilers? They never forget. Because here's something that will change the way you look at funerals forever. Killers come back to the scene. But more than that, they come to the funeral. And they are watching the mourners. Part 1. The chilling truth about funeral watchers. This is not a movie plot. This is not a ghost story. This is real. This is documented. And it has happened more times than most people realize. Law enforcement has known this for decades. When someone is murdered, especially in a small town or within a family or inside a close community, investigators don't just look at the crime scene. They don't just collect fingerprints and DNA. They go to the funeral. They stand at a distance, sometimes in unmarked cars, sometimes with cameras on tripods disguised as press equipment, sometimes just blending into the crowd. And they watch. They watch who shows up. They watch who doesn't show up. They watch who cries too hard, almost like a performance. They watch who doesn't cry at all. They watch who keeps looking around the room nervously. They watch who stares at the body a little too long. They watch who asks questions they shouldn't know the answers to, because the person who ended a life is often drawn back to it. Psychologists call it a need for closure, a need to see the result of what they did. Some feel guilt, some feel power, some feel a twisted kind of satisfaction. And in that moment, standing among the grieving, surrounded by people who love the victim, they cannot stay away. Why would a killer go to the funeral of the person they killed? It sounds insane. It sounds like something only a stupid criminal would do. But that's the thing. It's not stupidity. It's psychology. There are several reasons investigators have studied and documented over decades of criminal research. The first reason is control. Many killers, especially those who plan their crime, have an obsessive need to feel in control. The funeral is the final chapter. It is the last moment where the victim is the center of attention. And being there, among the mourners, gives the killer a feeling of invisible power. I know something none of you know. I am standing right here, and none of you suspect me. That feeling is addictive to certain types of killers. The second reason is guilt. Not every killer is a cold, emotionless machine. Some, especially those who killed someone they knew, a friend, a partner, a family member, feel crushing guilt. And that guilt pulls them to the funeral like a magnet. They tell themselves they are there to say goodbye. They tell themselves they deserve to grieve too. But deep down, they are looking for something. Forgiveness maybe, or punishment, or just the pain of seeing what they caused. The third reason is surveillance. This one is the darkest. Some killers go to the funeral specifically to watch how the investigation is going. They listen to conversations. They watch the family members' reactions. They look for police presence. They are trying to figure out, do they suspect me? They are gathering intelligence. At a funeral, and they are very, very good at blending in. This isn't just a theory you see in movies. This is history, written in police files and courtroom transcripts. Let's look at 3 real cases where the killer came to the funeral. First, the grieving boyfriend. A young woman was found dead in her apartment, and it looked like a break-in gone wrong. Her boyfriend was completely devastated. He was the first one at the funeral, crying louder than anyone. He even gave a heartfelt speech about how much he loved her, hugged her mother, and helped carry flowers. He was also the one who killed her. Investigators had already noticed strange details at the crime scene that pointed to someone she knew, not a random burglar. But it was the funeral footage that helped crack the case. A detective noticed that despite all the tears, the boyfriend's eyes were constantly scanning the room. Not with grief, but with cold calculation. 3 weeks later, he was arrested. Evidence found in his home confirmed what investigators suspected the moment they watched him at that funeral. Next, the friendly neighbor. A retired man in a quiet neighborhood was found dead under suspicious circumstances, and police had no clear leads. So they set up hidden, wide-angle cameras at the funeral, recording everything. Among the mourners was a neighbor who had known the victim for 15 years. He brought food to the grieving family and even helped park cars outside the church. But when investigators reviewed the footage, they saw something odd. This neighbor spent almost 12 minutes standing directly in front of the closed casket, just staring. Everyone else moved on. Not him. When they dug deeper into his background, they uncovered financial disputes between him and the disputes the victim had recently threatened to take to court. That neighbor is now serving a life sentence. And perhaps the most chilling case of all, the stranger at the graveside. In a small rural town, a teenage girl disappeared. A week later, her body was found, shattering the whole community. The funeral was attended by nearly everyone in town. But at the graveside, a local detective noticed someone standing at the back. He didn't recognize him. This man didn't speak to anyone, didn't cry, just stood perfectly still with his hands in his pockets, watching. The detective didn't approach. Instead, he photographed him from a distance and ran the license plates of every unfamiliar car in the parking lot. One plate came back to a man with a history of predatory behavior in a neighboring town. He was the killer. He had come to his victim's funeral, stood at her grave, and watched her family weep. And a detective who knew exactly what to look for caught him. By now, you might be wondering if this is a common practice. The answer is yes, absolutely. Law enforcement agencies all over the world, including the FBI, have documented attending victims' funerals as a standard investigative technique. In fact, some criminal investigation manuals specifically recommend funeral surveillance in homicide cases, especially when the killer is believed to have known the victim. So, what do investigators actually do at a funeral? They arrive early. They take note of everyone who shows up and when they arrive. They document faces, names, and license plates. They watch body language with highly trained eyes. A genuinely grieving person behaves in certain predictable ways. They move toward other grieving people. They often avoid eye contact with strangers. Their sadness is uneven. It comes and goes in waves. They might get distracted by a memory, and then the grief hits them hard again. But a person faking grief, or someone carrying immense guilt, behaves differently. Their eyes move in a distinct way. Their body is tense in a way that real grief doesn't create. They are watching, instead of being one of the watched. Investigators also listen. They pay close attention to what people say, who they talk to, and the questions they ask. And sometimes they even make contact. Undercover officers might attend disguised as distant relatives or old friends from college, gathering information naturally through casual conversation. It's one of the most powerful and, frankly, most unsettling investigative tools in law enforcement. It just goes to show you that sometimes the most important clues aren't found at the crime scene, but in a room full of mourners. Thanks for watching, and if you found this interesting, make sure to subscribe for more. Here is what truly haunts people when they learn this. Think about every funeral you have ever attended. Maybe it was a grandparent, a friend, a neighbor, someone from your community. And think, what if, somewhere in that crowd, someone was there who shouldn't have been? What if, while you were crying and remembering and holding someone's hand, there was a person 3 rows behind you who wasn't grieving, who was watching you grieve, who looked at your pain and felt something very different? This is the reality that investigators live with every day. They walk into these sacred spaces of grief, and they look at every face, and they ask, which one of you is not what you appear to be? And the terrible truth is, sometimes the answer is someone everyone knew, someone everyone trusted, someone who helped plan the funeral, who organized the flowers, who read the Bible passage at the altar. The face in the crowd is sometimes the face everyone was leaning on. There is something deeply disturbing about this topic, something that makes us want to look away. But there is also something important here, something that goes beyond crime and investigation. This teaches us that people are not always who they appear to be. The loudest crier in the room is not always the most broken. The quietest person in the corner is not always suspicious. But somewhere in between is a truth that we rarely want to accept. We do and fully know the people around us. We see what people show us. We believe the performance. We trust the tears. And most of the time, that trust is right. Most of the time, the people at a funeral are exactly who they appear to be: heartbroken, confused, grieving human beings. But sometimes, just sometimes, there is someone watching, not weeping, not remembering, not healing, just watching. And if that thought sends a chill down your spine, good, because it means you're paying attention. And paying attention in life, in grief, in the moments when we are most vulnerable, is how we protect ourselves and the people we love. So the next time you find yourself at a funeral, look around, not with paranoia, not with fear, but with the quiet, steady awareness that the Stoics and the detectives share alike. Not everything is as it appears. Notice who is grieving and who is watching. Notice who leans in toward pain and who leans back to observe it. Notice the person who asks the wrong questions at the wrong time. Notice the one who shouldn't be there, but is. Because somewhere out there, right now, there is a detective standing at the back of a cemetery, camera in hand, eyes scanning every face, waiting for the one person who is not crying, the one person who's watching the mourners. And that person, standing so still, thinking they are invisible, has no idea that someone is watching them.